3,000
This time on the Cruising Kiwis.
Well, welcome team. This is real-time Rob. This is Rob yesterday actually, because we're posting this tomorrow. Rob yesterday is here because Rachel, we've been in transit at sea and Rachel finds it really difficult to edit because we're spitting out these things like 5 minutes after they're finished, and she just hasn't been able to edit for this episode. So we're branching out to something a bit of historic, and it's as much for the new subscribers to our channel, and thank you to Zatara for the shout out in recent times, and to How To Sailing, these help make our channel more presentable. And for all those new subscribers, some of the old as well, this is a story about, I guess it's the backstory of kind of how we've come to be here. It's a talk I gave in Australia several years ago, and it touches on some adventure, it touches on some tragedy. But there's an underlying message to it all that I think is important, and it's that life throws you curveballs all the time. Don't we all know that? And I guess the critical thing is that how you choose to respond to those curveballs, to those difficult times. We all have choices, and sometimes we make good ones, sometimes we make bad ones. But the thing is to push on and make the best of what you have and go for it. So enjoy. Thank you very much. I'm getting that. Thank you for the introduction. It's an honour to be here. And look, when I was speaking with Nanette and Winston prior to this function, they did sort of emphasise to be brief, so I'll attempt to be so. You know, common words used here, and every speaker so far is the word passion, isn't it? And I believe with passion, anything is possible. With passion and belief, anything is possible. Thanks very much. Any questions? It's kind of true though, isn't it? I mean, if you are passionate about something and you believe it's possible to achieve, then you know, it's almost possible. You just got to get out there and have a go. And I became very passionate about something I heard about when I was competing at the Olympic Games. Part of the New Zealand rowing team went to the Atlanta Olympic Games, and I saw a flyer that was on a notice board there, and it said Atlantic Rowing Race. And this was a concept which was for two-person boats were to row across the Atlantic Ocean from Tenerife, just off the northwest coast of Africa, across to Barbados in the West Indies, about 3,000 miles of open ocean, or about 4,500 kilometres of open ocean. And I thought, mate, got to have a crack at this! Made a decision. Now, 4,500 kilometres, it's actually quite a long way. And mate, I couldn't get my head around it, you know. And I think with any big, scary, hairy, kind of audacious goal, the first thing you need to do if you want to take the second step after you've made the decision is to bring it down into more rational, realistic, achievable sort of chunks. And I think almost trick yourself, deceive yourself even if you have to. So I was in this state of trying to get my head around this enormous ocean, first ever rowing race, and I just couldn't take the next step until I saw this photo. And I realised, actually, it's not that far. It's actually like rowing from the intestines across to the udders, you know, it's not that far. So I made the decision, ended up quit my job, I topped up the mortgage, I actually got a bank loan to build a boat, found an incredibly silly man to join me in this race, first ever rowing race for cruise of two, and we turned up at start line in Tenerife, 30 boats lined up for the adventure of a lifetime. Sunday morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, away we go into the unknown. Often asked, you know, what did you do? 4,500 kilometres in a boat. Well, day one we rowed. Day two, we rowed some more. Day three, we took off our clothes. And we rowed with a strategically placed drink bottle, of course. You know, our philosophy to win this race was to keep going. If you can't walk, creep. Just keep inching towards the destination. No matter what challenges you face with, just keep moving. We did 2-hour shifts alternating. One person rowing, 2 on, 2 off, around the clock, non-stop. If we were going to win this race, we had to do that. And we did. We won. First ever rowing race across the Atlantic. Amazing. Thank you. It was an amazing feeling. And you know, coming onto dry land, but wobbly on the feet. Lost a lot of weight, 14 kilos. But it was such a cool thing. You know, Prince Andrew came out for the award ceremony. I just showed Prince Andrew there. He gave us a piece of wood with a turtle on it. he also gave us a couple of trophies. There was no prize money or anything like that. And it wasn't about prize money, it was about making the decision and going for it. And it wasn't necessarily about winning either. It was about overcoming the hurdles along the way. I haven't got time to go into too much detail around that. I will say, though, it was about attitude. And how you overcome those challenges along the way depended on your attitude. And while I was mid-Atlantic, my brother, Kerry Hamill, was an inspiration to me about his attitude. In 1978, he had been doing his version of the overseas experience. At the age of 27, sailing the seven seas, he was taking a paying charter on this particular trip from Singapore up to Bangkok. He got blown off course into Cambodian waters, took shelter behind a small island about 50 kilometres off the coast of Cambodia called Koh Tang. On the other side of that island was a Khmer Rouge naval gun base. That evening, a gunboat attacked his boat. Kerry's close friend, Canadian Stuart, was shot and killed at that time. And Kerry and the charter, an Englishman, John Dewhurst, were taken prisoner back to Tulsling prison in Phnom Penh, the capital, where they were tortured for 2 months, forced to sign confessions to being CIA, and were then executed. When I was at sea, I grieved for my bro. And I realised that at some point in the future I was going to have to do something to honour the memory of Kerry. Pol Pot was the man responsible for the Khmer Rouge regime and came into power April 17, 1975, cleared the streets of Phnom Penh, the capital, 2 million people forced into the countryside to basically go and grow rice. Anyone who resisted was killed. The place was left deserted. The one place that remained operational was Tulsling, the prison that my brother was incarcerated in, and it was operated by this man, Duik. Duik was infamous for creating the killing fields on the outskirts of Phnom Penh. The process of going into that prison was you're brought in on a cattle truck, shackled together, blindfolded. The blindfold was removed, a number tagged to your shirt, photograph taken. Didn't matter what age you were, it didn't matter what gender you were, it didn't matter even if you're a child. When that photo was taken, your fate was sealed. It didn't even matter if you were a baby or a mother for that case. Same deal. This kid would be about the same age as my eldest boy. Chain around his neck, number pinned to his shirt. This kid didn't have a shirt on, so they pinned the number to his chest. Somewhere between 15 and 20 or 30,000 people went through that prison, all met the same fate. My brother just went missing. The regular letter writers, they just stopped. For 16 months, we didn't hear a word, didn't know what had happened. Hope for the best, of course. Didn't ever dream or nightmare think the worst until we started reading articles in the media, would you believe, of my brother's incarceration, torture and confession and murder. And this confession, it's an incredible document. He mixed fact with fiction. And what he did, he talked about his life as a child growing up in Whakatane, New Zealand. Whakatane is not a rude word, actually, I should say, just to clarify. It's WH in Māori is Whakatane. Are you okay to say it? It's one time. He mixed his childhood memories of growing up in Whakatane, New Zealand, with his parents, with his siblings, and translated them into training operations to being a CIA operative. My dad, of course, was a CIA instructor. That document is still in the grounds today. He used incredible humour, would you believe, and irony in that document. This is it. This is Kerry's confession, taken under duress. And I guess this is the Khmer version.
I'm from New Zealand, and I am the CIA. I hereby to testify have used the modern equipment of Mary Mary.
Mary Mary.
Yeah.
Mary Mary. Yeah, okay. Mary Mary is I think it was a gas-fired power station, or maybe a coal-fired power station. He's just, there's a lot of humour here, and can you believe he's just trying to have some fun. I enrolled in the Psychology for Intelligence Officers course. This was taught by an American CIA intelligence officer, Major Roos. Roos, of course, being a con. A course on covers for intelligence officers was given by Colonel Sanders, which is obviously, under duress, Kerry was retaining some sort of sense of humour. Amazing. He also, would you believe, managed to somehow send secret coded messages to his family that only his family could have ever understood. The public speaking course was compulsory for all the second year students. This was taught by Mr. S. Tarr of the Carnegie Institute. Tarr was the head of the CIA office in Hamilton. He held the rank of captain. And S. Tarr, of course, is my mum, Esther. Yeah, and as I said, she was a lovely speaker, and she had this lovely Irish lilt that, it was a message to my mum. It was a message to my mum. You know, Mary couldn't have been a more ironic place to be training to be a CIA compared to where he was living at that time. And of course, Colonel Sanders was a busy bloke back in the 70s, setting up a KFC empire and training my bro to be CIA. And of course, sending these messages of love and hope, back to my family, to my mum, in the hope that one day he could have a laugh with them. But if not, know that he was thinking about us all at that time. The big thing that I've learned along the way is that he took himself out of there while he did that. While he was writing that document, he was he was out of there. He was back home having a good old time and living the dream. Even if it was momentarily, giving him a sense of hope. And Viktor Frankl, who was a survivor from Auschwitz, Nazi Germany, observed his fellow inmates. He said that when people lost a sense of hope, they died. The ones who retained a sense of hope survived. And they did that through techniques of observing the beauty in the world that still existed somewhere outside them, where there's a ray of light through a cloud, a flower, an act of dignity from a guard to a prisoner, reminding them, and of course using their memories, of childhood memories of their loved ones, to keep that sense of possibility that still existed out there. He said, Viktor Frankl in his book Man's Search for Meaning said, forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except one thing, your freedom to choose how you respond to that situation. And in my brother's situation, he responded with incredible strength and courage and dignity. And we get confronted things every day, challenges that are out of our control. And we have a choice how we respond to those, And it could be very low-level things. Someone cuts you off at the street light. Relatively low-level, someone burgles your house. Your boss tells you you have to stay after work to do some work even though you've got plans. All sorts of things. It's your choice how you respond to that. You can get angry. You can deny. You can stick your hands, I can't hear, can't see. You can curse. Whakatane! Whakatane, yes, good. It's WH though. Or you can fight. And the results for that most of the time. Or you can take a breath, take a step back, and look at the situation for what it is, and give a reasoned, rational, objective response. Remove the emotion where possible. And, it can be, you can practice that daily, make it a habit, so that when the big things happen, it could be a life-changing outcome, depending how you respond to that. My second eldest brother, John, didn't take the response I would have hoped, our family would have hoped. 9 months after we found out the news about Kerry, John, in the centre of this photo, took his life. And my parents suffered greatly. And the reason I'm telling you about this is because the first time in 30 years, the first person to be brought to trial for the Khmer Rouge, for the genocide of Cambodia, 2 million people, and it was the man who ran the prison that my brother was incarcerated in, Dewhurst. And I had the extraordinary privilege to be invited to testify at the War Crimes Tribunal in Cambodia, and one of 2 Westerners to do so, and tell him what I thought of him. And that was interesting. And I also took the extra step of producing a film about the genocide of Cambodia and telling my story and my story of discovery along the way, called Brother Number One. It's important because this is an unknown. If I'd talked to you 5-6 years ago before I started this project, what did you know about Adolf Hitler? I'd get a detailed, lengthy, informed answer, correct? I asked you about Pol Pot, chances are some of you wouldn't have known who he was, and maybe still true today until now. And I know that is the case in my country. You know, we showed the film in London last year, and I was on the tube station to go and introduce it and do a Q&A afterwards, and I got talking to a young lady, and I said, you know, what do you know about Pol Pot? And she said, oh yeah, that's that guy who won Britain's Got Talent contest, isn't it? Yeah, opera singer guy. No, that's Paul Potts. He's a different ballgame. He's a different ballgame altogether. He'd be welcome in my home anytime. But you know, it's an important story. You imagine being my parents, having lost 2 children, and a third son says, I want to row across the Atlantic Ocean. What would you say? And you know, I couldn't tell Mum and Dad for a month preparing to do this thing, and I had to make the call, spoke to Dad for a little bit, spoke to Mum briefly, and then we rang off. Oh, that kind of went okay. Half an hour later, phone rings, it's Mum. Here we go. And you know what she said? She said, son, you go for it. You go for it. She said, this could be the making of you. I don't think she thought I'd made anything at all in my life till that point. Apparently the Olympics wasn't good enough for her. but you know, wasn't that the most beautiful, courageous and loving gesture that a parent could give their child in that circumstance? And you know, I use this photo, these are my 3 boys now. You know, there's a metaphor for life. You've got to let your kids climb the tree. You know, our society is accountability, responsibility. It's important, but we take it to extreme. Our role as parents is to give our children the skills to climb the tree, you know? But then you just got to let them go. You've got to let them go and discover the world. Hopefully catch them if they fall. You know, if you don't, then hopefully help scrape up the pieces if it doesn't kill them. But you can't. You have to let them go. And it's the same for us in life. With our, you know, the people we manage as leaders, as co-workers, our role is to help facilitate others to upskill themselves to achieve whatever we're trying to achieve as a team. And then you've got to let them go and have a go. And if you fall over, we'll pick them up. It's so important. You know, last boat to finish the race was a mother and son across the first ever rowing race across an ocean. Talk about having a go. The mum was 53 years old. She had a birthday at sea. Son was 23 years old. Can you imagine that, rowing the Atlantic with your mum or with your son, as the case may be? They spent 101 days stuck in that little boat together. 101 days. Can you imagine? And they very appropriately called their boat Carpe Diem. Translated from Latin, of course, means seize the day. And you know, if there's any seize the day thing you can do each and every day is control how you respond to situations. It can be a life-changing situation for you. And just seize the day, have a go. Thanks very much.
If you enjoyed this episode, please comment, give us a thumbs up, and best of all, share it. It helps us heaps.
Come on, you need it so bad.